I met the devil on Tinder. Don't roll your eyes at me. It's not like I could have known beforehand. Okay, let me back up a little. My name is Emma Collins, and I just began working toward my master's in engineering. All those jokes online about there being no girls here weren't understatements. There are literally classes with 20 people in it, and I'm the only one who doesn't have something hanging between their legs. You'd think that would make dating easy, but I was only there to get my degree and get out. I wasn't about to get bogged down in a relationship. I didn't even want to have a fling with anyone in my class, because as soon as word got out that I'm looking to hook up, and yeah, I'd like to think people would brag about being with me, I'd have to start beating them off with a stick. But you can't expect a girl to study all day and night and not have a little fun, can you? I tried Tinder just so people would flirt with me and I could brutally reject them and feel good about myself. Harmless fun, right? Last night I swiped a sweet-looking guy who went to my university, wasn't an engineer, thank God, and shared my undying passion for Rick and Morty. He made me laugh, or at least snort air, and when he asked to get a drink I couldn't think of any reason not to. The pub was close, so worse comes to worse, I would at least get a free drink out of it and could still be home early. He texted to say he'd be a little late, but he was already there when I arrived. Same dude as the photo. That's a relief. He was even wearing the same clothes. Either he just set up his account today, or he wore the stuff from his photo so I'd recognize him. Either way, it didn't bother me as long as he wasn't some fedora-tipped whale. And damn was he charming. We just clicked on everything. Both big Ramones fans, read Stephen King, watched the same shows, hated the same politicians. Looking at you, blonde hairpiece. It was like this guy was specifically designed just to be perfect for me. I guess I should have taken that as the warning sign. One free drink turned into 4, and I don't know whether he asked me to come home with him or I just jumped in his car and let him figure it out, but we were headed back to his place when I got a weird text. So sorry I am late. Where are you? It was from the guy I met on Tinder. But that was impossible. I was in his car right now. Figured it was just a bad connection which stopped it from coming through earlier, so I decided to text back so he could read it later and laugh. You missed your chance. I went home with your twin brother. Well, I thought it was funny anyway, until he texted back again. Haha, I don't have a twin brother. Are you still at the pub? I looked between the phone and the driver. The car was dark, but it wasn't dark when I met him in the pub. He was the exact same person from the photos. The guy was pulling into his driveway now. He put his hand on my leg and smiled at me. Should have asked questions right there. I should have just got out of the car and run home. I should have done anything except what I actually did, which was kiss him. We went inside together and it was dark, but when he pushed me up against a wall, I didn't fight it. Not until the handcuffs clicked over my wrists. Okay, so we don't have all the same interests, but I was cool. I could roll with it. I strained against the restraints to kiss him again, and that's when he put the gag over my mouth. Now this was getting too much. I tried to pull away, but he forced me to. The ground. There was a trapdoor leading down to a basement, and he let go of me to open it. I was able to roll over and look at him, but it wasn't the same person who had stood next to me a moment ago. His back was hunched and he was moving with rapid, lurching movements. His eyes were hollow like he hadn't slept in days, and his mouth was a thin, bloodless line. That couldn't have been the same mouth I just kissed. I tried to scream, but the gag muffled most of it. I tried to kick, but he just took it and shoved me through the trapdoor. I rolled down a ladder and hit the concrete ground hard, like I could feel my bones rattling and blood in my mouth hard. Then the light above me disappeared. Was he just going to leave me here? But he hadn't left me. He was on my side of the door, climbing down the ladder toward me. I just play dead. Don't answer it. I don't know which was more frightening, the fact that I've been kidnapped, or the fact that I wasn't the only one. I was too Focused on myself at first to notice, but as the creature descended the ladder toward me, I saw them huddled against the wall. One woman was wearing a torn business suit. Her face was two pools of blood where her eyes used to be. One college girl my age, her hands sealed tight in constant prayer from a nail which pierced them together. One little boy, this one couldn't be more than 12, sitting against the wall with his knees pulled up to cover his face. I don't even make a sound. Whatever you do, don't reply to him, the professional woman said. I nodded my head to show recognition and lay still where I had fallen. It was hard to control my breathing while I heard his feet approach. What would he do if he thought I was dead? Couldn't be worse than what he'd already done to the living girls, right? Yeah, thump, hump. The voice above me drawled. It was still my date's voice. I can hear your heart singing for me. How does someone even know how to react in this situation? I tried to think of every crime show about psychopaths I had ever seen. What did the victims usually do to escape? But they didn't escape most of the time, did they? That's why the psychopaths became famous, because there were so many who didn't escape. I bit my tongue to keep myself from screaming. Look at me when I'm talking to you. The voice continued, but it was deeper now. Was he continuing to change? Was it still a man or something else standing over me now? Couldn't help myself. He already knew I was alive, and I had to look. I pulled myself up to my knees and stared into his face. He still looked like my date, although I wish he hadn't. But something wasn't right. It was like seeing a photograph of someone, only the photo is 50 years old, taken on an antique camera. Those eyes were still kind, even though they looked wearier now, and I could remember what the smile looked like on his tightly pressed mouth. Why are you doing this? I asked. The college girl groaned. Their strategy didn't work for them, so why would I just surrender to the torture? There was a way out. I was going to find it, and if there wasn't, well, at least I'll have tried. But I'm not doing this, my date replied. You're the one who came home with me. You did something to those people, I said. Couldn't even look at them. I couldn't admit to myself that I was going to end up like that. On my life, they did it to themselves, my date said, crossing his heart. He sat down next to me, and I backed away to the wall. You're lying. You did it to them, but you're not going to do it to me. I won't let you. Look, I'll prove it, he said. You're free to go anytime you want. This was a trick, right? He wasn't going to let me just walk out of here. Not after everything he's done, everything I've seen. What was the point? Or maybe he really was insane and I would be passing on my one chance to ever get out. What about them? Can they leave? I asked. No, you're the only one, he smiled. Creepy-ass smile. If I do ever get out of here, first thing I do is give Tinder a 1-star rating. Why? What's so special about me? We matched up because we're alike. You're going to bring me more people, and when you leave, you're going to return with more people to play with. I glanced back at the others against the wall. I would never, but I had to play along. My only chance of helping them was to first get out myself. I nodded. You're right. I'll be your queen, and I want my kingdom to grow. See you soon. Don't come alone. And that was it. He let me climb right up the ladder and walk out the front door. Smug bastard, thinking he's got me figured out. Although he'd be right, of course. I would be back, and I would be bringing someone with me. This isn't some movie. I'm not a macho action star, and I'm not about to run in there guns blazing and save those people. Guns? All I've got is a stapler which can hit someone in the face from 6 feet away. Don't ask how I know that. I did what any sensible human being would do and went to the police. I've never actually stepped inside a police station before in my life. My only experience with the cops at all is a speeding ticket that the guy in front of me totally deserved, but somehow I got stuck with. Going in now, I felt almost guilty, like I was the one who had done something wrong. but there wasn't time to be self-conscious. Can I help you? The sergeant on late-night duty asked languidly. She was the kind of cop that made me want to try shoplifting just for fun. If I couldn't outrun that 250-pound bag of marmalade, then I deserved to get caught. There was a little boy and a surly old lady waiting in line at the desk ahead of me, but I shoved past them. I don't care what they lost or whose neighbor has a dog. That won't stop barking. I'm willing to bet it doesn't beat a devil who tortures people. I need your help. I was kidnapped tonight. She looked me up and down as though she were doing me a favor. It's okay. Let her go ahead, the little boy said. I didn't take my eyes off the cop. Shaha. Please tell me what happened, she replied. She was after a date. I went home with this guy. So you voluntarily left with him? I know that face. You're prettier than me, so you must be a slut face. I did. But then he threw me into his basement. I might have broken something. I was flustered. I didn't know what I was supposed to say in this circumstance. Why did it feel like I was the one on trial? It was just now when I noticed the bruises were gone. My shirt was clean. The abrasions on my wrists from the handcuffs had vanished. There's no way they could have healed that fast. Shin, how did you escape? Shwell, let me go. This isn't right. This isn't how this is supposed to go. So let me get this straight, the cop replied, shifting her tremulous weight like she was apologizing to her chair. You went home with a guy, and then you left. What exactly did he do wrong? You don't understand. He had 3 other people down there too. He'd been torturing them. Torture. Now that's a powerful word. I don't know exactly what forces these guys to get out of their chair, but I'm pretty sure torture should do it. There was a middle-aged woman, a college girl, and this little boy. I finally had her attention. She sat upright and began taking notes. What kind of torture? Brutal stuff. The lady's eyes were out, and there was a nail through the girl's hands. I didn't get a good look at the boy. How old was he compared to the boy behind you in line? I looked back, and my heart skipped a beat in my chest. Hadn't noticed because of my rush, but the boy standing behind me was the same one who was hunched over in the devil's basement. Clean, well-fed, unharmed. But it was the same. Damn kid. The boy smirked. Mom? Was the boy you saw about his age? Come with me, the boy said. The 2 of us are going to have a little chat. What else could I do? The police weren't going to take me seriously. Not with 2 of the kidnapped people standing in their station. Just fine. I don't know what kind of sick game I found myself in, but when the boy walked out the door, I followed. I'm not going to lie. I was getting close to tears at this point. Felt like when you were a child trying to convince your mother of the monster under your bed. And as much as she tried to play along, you could tell she didn't believe you. She was just dying to get back to sleep and leave you alone with it. The helpless frustration of knowing something is out there but being utterly helpless to do anything about it. The only difference is that my devil is real and he was going to kill those people if I couldn't stop him. The only question is, why had he let the little boy go? Or me, for that matter? The boy was walking quickly. He kept looking over his shoulder at me to make sure I was following, looking at me with wide, terrified eyes. Now he was running. I chased him out of the station and straight across the street. Pickup screeched to a halt and blared its horn, and I dashed in front too. Grew. You too, dude. I wasn't about to let my only explanation get away from me. The little boy ducked under the guardrail on the side of the road and began sprinting down the grassy slope on the other side. He actually looked like he was trying to get away from me. Now, shit, if anyone saw us, it would look like I was the one trying to kidnap him. For once I was glad it was the middle of the night. He slid down the rest of the hill and darted into a concrete drainpipe. I was finally gaining on him, and before he made it out the other side, I managed to wrap my arms around his waist and hold him still. It was dark in here, The street lights didn't reach this far down. All I could see was the terrified little boy and the concrete around us. I let go of me. "Let me out," he screamed. "What are you talking about? You're the one who told me to follow." "I know I didn't. Let me go, Dot. Do you promise not to run away?" "How could I? The door is locked, so let me go, Dot." "The door? What door?" I let him go and he collapsed to the ground. He crawled over to the wall and pressed himself there, glaring fierce little daggers at me. "Tell me how you got out," I demanded. I took a step toward him, but stopped when he crawled farther along the wall. He must be traumatized after what he went through tonight. Shouldn't try to push him. I was just trying to get home. I've never been here before. He buried his head in his arms, sobbing. I knelt down and took another step forward, trying to appear as least threatening as possible. "Leave him alone, you brute," a woman's voice. Someone was here. I jumped backwards and my back rammed into something. I flailed in the air to keep my balance and hit a switch with my hand. A light turned on. Who would put a light in a drain pipe? But I wasn't in the drain pipe. I was back in the basement. Concrete walls. The boy cowering in the corner. The woman with the bloody eyes standing over him. Even my date from earlier tonight was here, only now his eyes were hollow and weary, his skin gaunt and tight. It looked like he had been down here for a long, long time. The only one I didn't see was the college girl. Okay, what the hell is going on? My whole body was starting to shake. The way they were all looking at me, it was like they thought I was the devil. But I was a victim too. What? Didn't they see it? "Weren't we enough for you?" the woman asked. "Why did you have to bring a little boy?" The boy was already here. He was here before me, I screamed. I must seem even more like a monster for screaming, but I couldn't help myself. "Don't let her hurt me," the boy cried. I didn't do any of this. It was him." I pointed at the man. "I knew you'd be back," he said, winking. This was all still a game to him. "The boy wasn't here until you brought him. Just gave you a glimpse of your future, Dot." But the other girl my age. There was no time to finish my question. "He is on top of me now, pinning me to the ground." He pressed my face into the concrete and put his knee in the center of my back. Screamed as he pulled my arms behind me, then the searing pain in my hands. I couldn't see what was going on, but it was easy enough to imagine the nails sealing them together. I had already seen what was going to happen. I just didn't know it would be happening to me. I got out 3 more times since then. The first time he let me go, I was free for about an hour. I hitchhiked and drove as far from town as I could get. It wasn't until we stopped that I realized my driver was wearing a mask, that he was the same devil I met on Tinder. We were back at his house and he dragged me back down into the basement. The second time I escaped while he was sleeping. The door was unlocked, which seemed too easy to be real. I was right. Went to the hospital to get the nail out of my hands. Told them not to put me under, but they insisted on using anesthesia. During the surgery, when I woke up, I was back in the basement. The nail was gone, but it looked like it was roughly pulled and I didn't have any bandages, so I'm not sure if I ever really made it outside. This time I stayed in the house. I went upstairs and found a phone and a computer. I tried calling the police again, but the line didn't go through. Now that the nail is out, I'm able to write this to have some record of what is going on. I don't know if this is real or not, but I want to have something I can check to see if I ever got out of that room at all. I don't know exactly where I am. Somewhere in the Houston suburbs. He's going to come for me again soon, and I'm going to wake up back in the basement. He says he'll let me out again if I return with more people, but I know I'll only end up back here with them. Right now I'm strong enough to resist, but sooner or later I'm going to break and do what he says. I don't know how to warn you, but I just want you to know, if you meet someone online and he seems too good to be true, then he probably is dreaming without sleep. Humans don't have a physiological need to sleep. Over time, Chemical levels of adenosine build up, which cause the sleepy feeling, but that is simply a trigger designed to force our bodies to rest. Some scientists have theorized that this is an evolutionary mechanism intended to prevent us from wasting unnecessary energy while keeping us hidden during the night. Well, there isn't any shortage of calories to consume, and there's nothing going to eat me in the night. So as far as I'm concerned, sleep is just an antiquated fetter which humans should leave behind. We don't need sleep to live, but we cannot survive without dreaming. And if you stay awake for long enough, you'll start to dream even while awake. The more you try to fight those dreams, the more real they will become. Pretty soon you can't tell which is the dream and which is real, or whether there is a difference at all. That's the story I told the police and my attorney, and it's the story I'm sticking with now. It started when I read an article in my psychology class about this Vietnamese insomniac named Thai Ngoc who hasn't slept in 43 years. Said he had some kind of fever and then never felt the urge to sleep again. Even working full-time, it's like he has a vacation every night. I don't know about you, but for a stressed-out college student, always trying to cram for the latest test, that sounded like a lifesaver. I'm paying my own way through college with a work-study program, and trying to maintain a social life in the half-hour break I have between class and work is absolutely impossible. I'm tired and stressed and missing out on what is supposed to be the best years of my life because I never have a free moment to be myself. If I could find a way to waste less time sleeping though, maybe things would get better. I did some more reading and became obsessed with the idea. If we sleep for 8 hours and are awake 16, then eliminating sleep would be equivalent to adding around 40 years to my lifespan. Assuming an 80-year life, I found some studies about a drug being tested on mice called RxNA, which was supposed to completely eliminate the need for sleep. It hadn't been approved for human trials yet, but there weren't any negative side effects found in the mice. If anything, they seemed more active than ever. And the best part was research for this drug was being done right at UCLA, where I go to school. Well, I was able to find where the lab was easily enough, although I didn't expect them to just hand me the chemicals. Tried to get an internship there, but they required at least 20 hours a week, and I couldn't even begin to fit that into my schedule. I forgot about the whole thing until I overheard Ricky, one of the other kids in my psych class, mentioning that he got the internship. Ricky was boasting about using the keys to sneak into the lab at night to get high off the anesthesia they used on rats. He doesn't sound like an idiot yet, then add a tank top that says AI. Party with sluts, a hat with the Yobe sticker, and a skateboard which he carries around to look cool but doesn't know how to ride. You got the idea, but that was fine with me because it made it a simple matter to pretend to be his friend. All I had to do was turn my hat backward, make a couple dumb jokes about the blonde sitting in front, high-five him when she bent over, and voila, suddenly we were brothers. Future of American science right here. It didn't take many hints before he invited me into the lab. Found where the RxNA experiments were just by looking up the faculty directory in charge, and before my buddy finished coming down from huffing anesthesia, I had a whole backpack full of the little spray bottles of Rxin. It was nasally administrated, but I didn't care as long as it worked. And holy hell, it worked all right. 20 squirts up each nostril. Seemed like a lot, but I controlled the dosage to 1 milligram per kilogram body weight, which was equivalent to the dose the mice were getting. I played Skyrim straight into the dawn. Okay, so it wasn't quite self-actualization, but I hadn't had any free time in a while, and it felt great to have the constant pressure off me. The night was so quiet, and by the early morning it felt like the entire world was made just for me. I didn't even feel tired until the following night, and I just took another dose and all the weariness washed away. I spent the second night reading Shakespeare just for fun. How else would anyone ever have the time for that? There was so much to do and learn about the world, and finally I had the chance to see it all. It was the best thing I could have ever hoped for. The one thing the mice hadn't mentioned during their experiments, however, was that you can still dream without sleeping. They started on the third day. Little visual abnormalities that danced around the corner of my vision. Patterns, or shapes, or textures just drifting idly by. I actually enjoyed them at first, but the longer I went without sleep, the more real they became. By the 5th day, I actually started seeing fully formed people walking alongside me. They were always in my peripheral vision, and as soon as I turned to face them, they disappeared. It was the evening of the 6th day when I opened my bedroom to see a smiling figure sitting on my bed. It didn't even have a face, just teeth which wrapped all the way up around, up to where its ears should be. I splashed cold water in my face, and the thing disappeared, but it still freaked me out. I decided to take a break from the drug then, but even without it, I couldn't sleep that night. There must have still been some in my system. I tossed and turned, and every time I got up, that figure with the teeth was there watching me. Every time I jolted myself awake, it would linger a little longer in my room, silently smiling. I managed to get through the next day, still off the drug and still seeing the creature out of the corner of my eye wherever I looked. I got used to him though and even began to nod off. During the psych lecture, after class, I decided to call in sick from work and just go sleep. Ricky was trying to talk to me, but I was so tired I couldn't even figure out what he was saying. It was hard to even look at him with the creature standing next to us. I just mumbled something and turned to leave, but the idiot kept following me. I shouldn't have shoved him, but I was so tired I couldn't deal with pretending to be his friend anymore. He stumbled back a few paces, right into the smiling creature. The weirdest thing was, I swear he bounced off the creature and looked over his shoulder. It seemed stupid to think he could see my dream, but I was so tired I wasn't thinking straight. I just bolted and ran. Ricky was still following me though. He was insistent. Something about there being a security camera at the lab. That we had to get our story straight about what we were doing there. I don't know. I just wanted to get home. I just wanted to sleep. I ducked into an alley between the psych and sociology buildings, but I couldn't lose him. He grabbed my shoulder and pulled me to the ground, and I didn't have the strength to fight him off. I was too tired to get up, so I just lay there and let him yell at me. My mind was so numb with exhaustion, even the sound of his shouting faded into a gentle white noise, and I must have fallen asleep right there on the ground. His body was mangled almost beyond recognition. The police told me there were witnesses who saw me jump on top of Ricky and bite his face into a bloody pulp. They said I had some kind of inhuman strength and that it took almost a dozen people to drag me off him. They said I hurled him like a rag doll into the building, dislocating both his shoulders and smashing one of the bricks into powder. I don't know how I could have done it while I was asleep. All I know is that when I was about to drift off, I saw my creature standing behind Ricky, and the last thing I saw before closing my eyes was its teeth sinking into his neck. The court blamed the incident on the drug, and I've been transferred to a rehab clinic. It's been 4 days since I've last taken Rxin, but the creature hasn't gone away. Every time I close my eyes, it's sitting a little closer. Sooner or later I'm going to fall asleep, and it's going to take control again. I'm writing this because if I can't stay awake, I want someone out there to know. Don't blame me for what he does when I'm asleep. I'm fighting it for as long as I can. Burning desire. I'm saying this as a confession. I can't explain how it happened, but I know it's my fault because it started with me hurting myself, and it's not like I wanted attention or anything. Okay. Well, as long as I'm being honest, I wouldn't mind someone noticing me. But that isn't why I burned myself. It definitely isn't why I killed myself, but I'm getting ahead now. I was in class one day when someone set a fire in the chemistry lab. Probably Jason. That idiot was always using the Bunsen burners to melt pins and glue and whatever he could get his hands on. Anyway, the fire drill started and the whole High school was paraded out into the parking lot like we practiced during drills. Everyone was laughing and screaming, and I'd just gotten out of a math test I wasn't ready for, so I didn't mind. While we were standing in the parking lot, I overheard Lisa say that Sammy, the kid in the wheelchair, got stuck on the elevator during the drill. It's not hard to overhear things since I hang on her every word, but you would too if that blonde goddess was standing next to you wearing a punk plaid skirt and a sweater almost tight enough to see through. What was I saying? All right, well, rumor had it that another kid went back into the school to get Sammy out. No one knew who it was, but they were already talking about him like he was a hero. That's when I had an idea. Could just burn the edges of my clothes a bit, and then Lisa and all the other kids would think I was the one who went back in for Sammy. I could be the hero. And even if the real hero did come forward, well, I had the burns and he didn't. So who were people going to believe? I kept my head low and stayed away from anyone who might recognize me, which wasn't very hard since I didn't have a lot of friends, or any, I guess. I was new and it would take time. I just hadn't expected it to take more than a semester for anyone to recognize me. But that's okay, because after today I was going to be the hero. When the bell rang for us to go back inside, I darted straight to the bathroom. There's a place under the sink where some of the seniors hide a box with cigarettes and lighters. Pulled the box out, found a nice black Zippo lighter with a skull on it, and here goes. The fire springs to life. Well, turns out polo shirts don't light up as easily as I was expecting. I blackened a few hairs, but this wasn't nearly enough for people to think I walked through a fire. I used a pen to open the Zippo at the bottom and poured all the lighter fluid onto my shirt. My heart was pounding. I was excited. Couldn't wait to come back to class and watch Lisa's face sparkle with awe. I didn't even take the shirt off. I wanted a few burns, enough to show how tough I was. Just as I was about to light the fluid, my mind played a funny trick on me. It looked like the skull on the lighter was smiling. Didn't remember it doing that before. Too late now, the fire was already dancing over my shirt. It barely even felt warm. Watched myself in the mirror as the fire spread from shoulder to shoulder. My buttons began to heat up and stung a bit, but the shirt was smoldering nicely. I ran the faucet and splashed the water on me. That'll be enough. But the fire drank the water as though nourished by it, spitting boiling vapor into the air. The heat was intense now. Tried to rip the shirt off, but the polyester was melting to my skin. The metal buttons seared into my flesh. Couldn't stop screaming. I didn't want anyone to see me like this, but it was like I was hearing someone else scream through me without even asking my permission first. I dropped on the ground and began to roll, but the fire just continued to spread over my entire body. It ran up my arms, and I could actually see the flesh melting from my finger bones. The pain was like you can't imagine. My whole body was being pierced with red-hot knives. Then it started to go black. Thank God. I'll fall unconscious and someone will find me. It'll be over. But no, only half my vision was gone. I looked into the mirror and watched my left eyeball melting down my face. It would have gone down my cheek if there was any cheek left, but it simply dripped through the hole in my skin, straight into my mouth. I gagged. How was I still conscious? The pain wasn't letting up, but I forced myself to watch my reflection. I'd done this to myself. Somehow, I deserved it. My jawbone was completely exposed now, and it was starting to crack from the heat. There's no way a Zippo lighter could have done this. I grabbed the little black box, but the skull had vanished. Whoosh. A toilet flushing. Was someone in here the whole time? I tried to turn my head, but my spine was too weak to support me and started collapsing in on itself. I crumpled to the floor and watched as a bathroom stall opened. What the hell? Was this it? Am I dead now? Because there's no reason, no way I could really be seeing myself walk out of the bathroom stall. Other me, wearing my shirt and pants, completely unsigned by Fire walked over to the sink beside me. He calmly washed its hands in the sink, not even glancing down at me writhing on the floor. I tried to speak, to scream anything, but only a dry gurgle escaped my throat. That's when the other me turned and smiled, and I could have sworn it was the same bony white smile the skull wore. Your turn on the inside, it said, or I guess I said that because it looked a lot more like me than I did. Then everything went black, only I could still feel every inch of my burning body and hear the wet plop of my skin sliding down my bones onto the floor. I heard footsteps as I left the room. I must be inside the lighter now, waiting for the next person to let me out. But I can still feel my flesh burn, so I pray to God it won't be long. I met with the most unusual patient a little while ago. I would never ordinarily post online about someone's confidential details, but I'm frankly at a loss with this one. I have begun the process to submit this case study to a variety of peer-reviewed journals, but in the meantime I am seeking alternative explanations to help him. Since I'm telling the story anyway, I suppose there's no use denying it. I could also use some help myself. I earned my MD at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine with an additional 4 years residency at the Baltimore Bethesda Fellowship. Next came 5 years at the Union Memorial Psychiatry Hospital before I opened a private practice, which I've now run for the last 12 years. I have encountered everything from a blind synesthetic who can still see visuals through sound, a schizophrenic who tried to kill herself right in my office, and an obsessive-compulsive who tightened his shoe laces so relentlessly that both feet lost circulation and had to be amputated. I thought I had pretty much seen it all until this latest patient. I will protect his privacy by referring to him as a Mr. X. Mr. X's symptoms were innocent enough, just a ringing in his ears which wouldn't go away. He'd visited numerous otolaryngologists, but as there was no discernible cause for the ringing, he was referred to me to decipher the psychosomatic source of the phenomenon. During our first meeting, he didn't make eye contact with me, nor did he ever speak above a whisper. He just stared at his hands, endlessly wringing them against each other. He'd been doing it so obsessively, in fact, that his fingers were rubbed raw and bloody. I made considerable progress on the first day, and with the aid of some anti-anxiety medication, he was able to look me in the eye, although the hand-wringing continued. Can you hear it, doctor?" he asked me during the second session. Of course not. The sound is not coming from a mutually accessible environment. The sound is a fabrication of your mind. I wish now I hadn't prescribed the anti-anxiety medication. However, that I'd kept those black, lifeless eyes pointed away from me. He pulled his gaze away from the ground and looked at my face, and it seemed as though the effort it cost him resembled how you or I might struggle to gaze at the hideous disfigurement of some elephant man. That's when I began to hear it too, that soft ringing, like church bells inside my skull. "How about now? Do you hear it now, doctor?" he asked. And that smile, that twisted grimace of satisfaction, somehow he knew I could. Regardless, admitting I heard his hallucination would only deepen his psychosis, so I naturally had to deny it. I terminated the session early and prescribed some antipsychotics, even taking some for myself. By the time I got home, the ringing was gone. In our third session, the ringing started again as soon as he entered the room. The pitch wasn't consistent like it was before, though. It rose and fell with melodic rhythm like a whole orchestra was welling up inside of me. Mr. X just stared and grinned. I don't think he even cared about getting better anymore. He was just relieved at not being the only one to hear it. He wasn't very responsive that session. All he would do was hum along to the music inside my head. I terminated early again, and he went home without complaint. As he was leaving, my secretary asked me where those strange bells were coming from. I increased the dosage, prescribing some to myself and my secretary as well. The phantom sounds went away again, but the moment Mr. X was back in the room with me, the music would swell up. My racing heart pushed blood through my veins in rhythm with the beat, and my head would throb from the intensity of those notes reverberating around my brain. Edict started wringing my hands too, just as something to distract myself from the noise. By the end of the fourth session, the skin around my palms was wearing thin and there was blood beginning to seep through. I hadn't even noticed how hard I was clenching them together. As you might imagine, I referred him to another doctor. He called no doubt to complain, but I told my secretary to let it go to voicemail. I didn't care. I wasn't taking him back, and if that were the end of it, then I would have simply hung up my coat and retired that day, but the sound hasn't left me. If anything, it's growing louder, and I had even begun to hear a choir join in with the orchestra. My secretary didn't come into work today. I'm here all alone, at wit's end what to do. I've tried every cocktail of medication I can think of, but it's only left me feeling worn out and hollow. The sound is still there. I didn't want to be alone here, but somehow my office is the only place I felt safe. Tried to call my secretary to see how she was doing, but I never worked the phone system and must have pushed the wrong button. I just got the voicemail from Mr. X, but I was so desperate for an answer, I still forced myself to listen to it. Here is what he said. As long as the music plays, you're all right. All the world is a stage and all of life a play upon it, and as long as the music sounds, the show is still going on. I didn't come to you because I was afraid of the music. I came to you because I was afraid it would stop. I spent the rest of the day calling patients and referring them to new specialists. I called my building manager and opted not to renew the lease on my office. I went home with no intention of ever going to work again. The music is getting quieter every day now, but that's only making me more anxious. Yvette tried calling Mr. X again, but his cell phone is out of service. Called the doctor I referred Mr. X to, but he never showed up for his appointment. I even went so far as to visit the address listed on his medical forms, but it was just an abandoned theater. I don't know how much longer the music will play for or what will happen when it stops, but until then I'm just wringing my hands and waiting. Killer selfie. Okay, there's something weird going on. I don't want to tell my friends or family. They probably just make fun of me for being scared. I have to post this somewhere though, because if something does happen to me, then I want there to be someone who knows. It started with these selfies appearing on my phone. Haha, right, so you accidentally clicked the camera button when you weren't looking. That's what I thought at first too, until I found a photo of me sleeping, taken from across the room. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment. I charge my phone overnight on the night table beside my bed. There's no reason the phone should have been across the room from me in the first place. I deleted the photo as soon as I found it. I just felt weird having it on my phone. The next night, there was another one. This time it was taken by someone standing right over my bed. After that, it started getting even weirder. I found a couple of photos of myself at Universal Studios, and you guessed it, I've never been there. It showed me hanging out with my friend, David. We were on rides together, eating ice cream, getting photos with the giant Transformer robots. It actually looked like a lot of fun. That's when I decided he must be playing a trick on me. Don't know how he was getting the pictures on my phone, but he was obviously photoshopping just to screw with me. 2 days later, David actually did invite me to Universal. Was a relief because I figured this is where he would finally come clean about what was going on. Of course he denied it, but that was all part of the joke. Or at least that's what I thought, until another photo appeared. While we were hanging out, my face looked so surprised as a man behind me forced his switchblade between my ribs. I freaked. I just went straight home and stayed in my room for the rest of the day. I broke my phone by slamming it in my desk. drawer over and over until it wouldn't turn on. The next day, I went to the ATT store for a new phone. Said the last one was stolen, and they gave me an insurance replacement one, brand new, straight out of the package. It didn't even have a SIM card in it yet, but the moment I opened it, I saw a photo of myself saved as the wallpaper. Only I didn't look like I usually do. My eyes were sunken like I haven't slept in days. My clothes were caked with dirt and blood, and there were open sores on my skin. The photos are appearing several times a day now. Some depict me getting hit by a car or sitting in a bathtub in a pool of my own blood. I got one the other day where I was stretched out on a laboratory table, shackled into place. I'm afraid to destroy my phone again. I decided it might be trying to warn me, and if something is going to happen, I need to know about it so I can be ready. I haven't left my apartment in almost a week now. The last photo to appear showed me hanging by the neck from my ceiling fan. I don't want to do it, but if it does happen, I just want people to know. It wasn't me who did it. Something did it to me. To know about it so I can be ready. I haven't left my apartment in almost a week now. The last photo to appear showed me hanging by the neck from my ceiling fan. I don't want to do it, but if it does happen, I just want people to know. It wasn't me who did it. Something did it to me. The delivery was easier than I expected because she was very small. The doctors wanted to keep her there, but I knew she would be better off with me. As soon as I looked into her brilliant blue eyes, I knew everything was going to be okay. Hair wasn't all there, but I just had to get a little pink dress for her, and she looked as beautiful as a porcelain doll. I don't know what my parents were so worried about. Being stillborn makes her even easier to take care of. She never eats, never makes a mess, and never makes a fuss when I dress her. I have to apply makeup and a bit of perfume to cover up the rotting bits, but there's nothing I wouldn't do for my little girl. The only thing that bothers me, and this is going to be true of any new baby, is when she cries in the night. She's doing it now, but it's honestly okay. I think I'm just going to sew her mouth shut in the morning. Confessions of a Serial Killer. This letter is from a confessed serial killer to his 13-year-old daughter. Dear Samantha, I'm sorry I haven't been around for a while, but you're going to have to be strong, just like I'm trying to be strong for you. Don't know how much your mother has told you, but sooner or later you're going to hear about what Daddy did, and I want to tell you why I did it. They're going to tell you I killed those 7 kids, that I tortured them first, chaining them in that shed in the woods. You remember the place? You used to build a fort there and play princess of the castle. You'll always be my princess, even after everything that has happened there. You're going to hear about how the victims were starved and forced to eat the one who came before them, and how they'd be chained up until the next one came round to eat them up too. You're going to see my name brought up on websites and social media. Photos of the murders are going to be uploaded, and you're going to have to see those corpses stripped of flesh and put on display for the whole world to see. You're going to hear priests condemning me to hell and news stations using my name as propaganda for whatever self-serving platform they can find. And worst of all, you're going to be feared because of your association with me. But you have your whole life ahead of you, and no matter how bad it seems now, this is not your defining moment. These weeks or months until everyone forgets won't last forever. These killings will not determine who you are. I won't be coming home again, but someday after years have stretched this memory thin, it's going to be like none of this has ever happened. That's why I did it. That's why I confessed, so you could move on and forget. That's why I never told the police that you were the one who led them into the woods. That's why I turned myself in as soon as I found the bodies. I don't care how many of them you got. There's only one person I care about protecting, and that's you, my princess. If this is what you want, then you should have it. You deserve everything in this world. I know you told me that you weren't going to stop leading people into the woods, but at least try to. Be more careful next time. Don't take kids. Don't take anyone. They're going to look for And when I'm gone, I hope you find someone who loves you as much as your daddy does. Hope. They love you so much. They confess for you and you can keep playing forever. Don't ever stop playing, princess. The world is yours. Love, Daddy. My name is Detective Matthews. I was lead on the killer Miller serial murder case. This letter was confiscated after an inmate tried to smuggle it out of the visitation room. Samantha. Miller is currently missing, last seen in Los Angeles County. The station is offering a reward to anyone who can provide information regarding her whereabouts. Samantha is considered to be a danger to herself and others. If you have any information, please call 323 *** and ask for Mr. Matthews. The final question. There are lots of stories about how people die. Death is very intriguing because it is something everyone will experience, and yet no one has ever experienced, because as soon as you have undergone death, there is no more you to have experiences at all. But this isn't the story of just anyone's death. This is the story of how you die. One of you will go like this, but it will be a similar story for the rest of you when your time has come. And there won't be any bells or choirs, no light at the end of the tunnel. There won't be any voice calling you home or crying ancestors welcoming you with open arms. I know. Because that's not what happened when I died. Your death is going to go like this. A week after Valentine's Day, you're going to be killed when a drunk driver T-bones your car at 65 miles per hour. You'll know that's how fast he was going, because you'll hear the police reading his broken speedometer after they pronounced you dead. There will be a shard of glass that went straight through your right eye and out the back of your head. Contrary to most people's opinion, discovering you are dead won't be as traumatic as you might expect. It turns out being disconnected from endorphins and adrenaline and surging blood pressure and all that messy biological stuff makes everything quite calm. But you won't feel dead. You'll feel hollow. It's like you're sitting alone in a dark theater, watching a movie of your own death. And the more time that passes, the dimmer and quieter the movie will become. I don't know if you will die right on impact or whether this is the distorted senses of your oxygen deprived brain as you bleed out on the ground. I just know that pretty soon it will be dark and peaceful and quiet, and you'll probably be okay if that was the end. But it won't be the end, and you won't be alone. When all the light is gone, there will be something moving in the darkness around you. You'll have no body or voice to scream with. You'll just be a single thought, being pressed in on all sides by the suffocating presence of something that's been waiting for you your entire life. Oh, and here's a fun fact to look forward to. Turns out pain is more than a firing neuron. It's an integral part of the conscious experience. And even when your body is gone, the consciousness that remains will still feel pain. Presence around you will crush you into oblivion until the pain becomes so intense you can't even think. You'll just have to wait for this part to be over. And you're going to be waiting a long while, because the perception of time is something you'll have left behind. Pain is all there is, all there ever was, and all there ever will be. Because somewhere in the beginning that which existed was separated from that which does not, and the void has never forgiven you for leaving it behind. But when it does end, and it will, because I'm here now, you're going to be asked a question. And you better be ready for it, because if you don't answer, the eternity is going to begin again. Just one question that determines whether or not this will ever end. And if you answer right, you'll get to go again. And you might even remember some of it like I did. And if you answer wrong, then nothing good you've ever done will spare you what's coming. And the question is, will you bring more people to take your place? And I said yes. And I have. And I'm not done yet. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. He came to me like all the others and sat down in the other side of box. His voice was strange to me, almost like a voicemail, compared to a human speaking in person. Just speak, and you will be forgiven, my son. I usually go in expecting infidelity. That is the most common curse which gnaws at our hearts with guilty teeth. I have killed a man, a good man, a man of God. The thrill only increases with the magnitude of the sin. Ido, not know who he is, but he is already telling me something, which would allow me to destroy his entire life. Breathe slowly, through my nose so as not to let the excitement enter my voice. Why did you do such a thing? He was a murderer himself, and I was afraid he would kill. Again, he replied, disappointing. When they have a reasonable excuse for their sin, they do not feel the same desperate need for my approval. Would have preferred he killed someone innocent. To take a life for any reason is a great crime against God, I replied. That seemed like what I was expected to say. Confession is not the time to remind them how much blood God had demanded over the years. It is not your place to judge them. And it is yours to judge me. There was accusation in that voice. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. Did I know this man? Only God may pass judgment for such a sin. Then I won't waste my time with you. I heard his door open and then slam shut like a petulant child going to his room. What an unfulfilling sinner he was. The rush I usually felt was utterly absent. The next week, I heard the same voice on the other side of the box. Forgive me, Father, for I have killed another man. Was he a murderer too? Not yet, but he could have become one, the voice said. Infuriatingly familiar. Perhaps he was a relative or simply one of my regular congregation. All men have the capacity for evil. Does that give you a right to kill anyone? I asked. There was nothing as satisfying as leading them to condemn themselves. Finally, I would hear the real confession I was waiting for. Yes, I could not have prepared myself for that answer. By the time I got home, I knew who he had killed. My father had been choked to death in his house last night. Still, remember the first beating he gave me when I was 4 years old. The scars from the lashes on my back have never healed to this day. Lord knows I had thought about ending him myself 100 times, but actually hearing the news was unimaginably painful. The guilt of my own evil thoughts against him was almost enough for me to seek confession myself, but there was no sense dirtying my image when I had resisted my evil temptations. If anything, I was thankful to my father. I never would have joined the church if I wasn't trying to get away with him. His cruelty had paved the way for my mercy. I didn't anticipate the killer to ever return after how closely he struck me. He couldn't have expected my forgiveness after so personal an attack. A month passed, and I had come to terms with my father's death when the voice spoke through the wooden grate again. Forgive me, Father, for I have killed another man. My breath caught short. My fists clenched. How dare he? He never received absolution for either of his previous visits. When it occurred to me, he wasn't here for absolution. He was here to taunt me. The death of my father, the manner he composed himself, the blasphemous disregard for my authority. This was all a personal attack. Why did you do such a thing? I forced one word to follow the other. I couldn't slow my breathing this time. I couldn't allow this monster to continue, because he made a fool out of everything I believe in. That was exactly what he was doing, though. That was proof. He was only here to torment me. I don't know what I have done to this man to deserve such abuse, but I am still a man, with blood pounding in my veins. I was not going to idly take it any longer. I get out of here, I said. Both this church and heaven will be barred to you forever. You're a fraud, the voice said. You don't speak for God. Hell, you probably don't even believe in him. You just get off on the power you feel from pretending. I'm warning you, I was shouting now. Sure what? You'll send me to hell? Thought only God could judge me. I was shaking so bad I had to stand to expel some of the extra energy. I killed your father with my bare hands, and all you can do about it is preach something you don't even believe. You're pathetic. That was too far. I flung open my side of the confession booth and raced over to his. I threw the second door open with enough force to tear it off the hinges. As though his insults weren't enough, the man was wearing a rubber mask of Jesus. "Take that damn mask off and leave," I shouted. I didn't give him time to respond, though. I was already lunging at him, trying to pull the mask off. He fought back, his hands clasping around my throat. Those hands, the same hands which had choked the life out of my father. It was all a blur after that. I tried to pry them off, but the grip was too strong. It wasn't until I got my own hands around his neck that he began to lose hold. The thrill of confession, the power I held over people, it was nothing like this. There is no power over someone like having their neck in your hands. I finally understood why my father beat me. I never felt closer to the divine than that moment when this demon convulsed beneath my hands before finally falling limp. Finally, now I could see who hated me so much that they would go to these extreme lengths to torment me. His cold, dead hands, so alike my own, were helpless to prevent me pulling back his mask. I stared at my own dead face, vomit coating the sides of my mask, my dead tongue lolling grotesquely from my mouth. That is how I came to terms with who I am. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I have killed a man of God. I have killed my father. I have killed the man who made a fool of everything I believe in, and I have never felt more alive.